I thought it was going to be a quiet Saturday morning. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other, garage door firmly shut like it always is. That's when a sharp knock turned into pounding, and a stranger's voice yelled my name like she owned the place. By the end of that day, police cars were in my driveway. My neighbors were watching from behind curtains, and the woman screaming at me had no idea she was about to make the biggest mistake of her HOA career. I live in a neighborhood run by an HOA, the kind that loves clipboards more than common sense. Most of the time, I keep me head down. I pay the fees, mow the lawn, and stay invisible. I own my home, but I also rent out the garage apartment above it to help with expenses. That detail matters later. At the time, all that mattered was that I was enjoying Myra's day off when the knocking started. When I opened the front door, there she was, mid-50s, perfectly styled hair, oversized sunglasses. Even though she was standing in the shade, she had a laminated badge hanging from her neck and a thick folder tucked under her arm. Without saying hello, she leaned forward and said, "You need to unlock your garage now." I blinked, genuinely confused, and asked who she was. She scoffed like I had insulted her. She told me she was part of the HOA board and that she was conducting an HOA tour. Apparently, that meant inspecting private property for compliance. I told her calmly that my garage was locked and that I wasn't expecting any inspection. She rolled her eyes and said, "Inspections don't need appointments." That's when she dropped a line that made my stomach tighten. She said she'd received a tip that my garage was being used improperly. She wouldn't say how, just that she needed access immediately. I told her no. Simple, clear, polite. Noon from the HOA had the right to enter my garage without notice, and I wasn't unlocking anything for a stranger at my door. Her face changed instantly. The polite enough mask vanished, replaced by pure outrage. She raised her voice so the neighbors could hear, and accused me of hiding violations. She said, if I had nothing to hide, I'd open the garage. I could feel that familiar HOA pressure tactic kicking in, the kind designed to make you doubt yourself even when you're right. I repeated that she had to leave. That's when she stepped back, pulled out her phone, and said loudly, "Fine. If you're going to obstruct an HOA investigation, I'll call the police." She said it like she was announcing checkmate. Then she added that she'd tell them I was acting suspicious and aggressive. At that moment, I was shocked more than scared. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't moved toward her. I was standing on my own porch telling her no. Still, she dialed in and started talking fast, gesturing at me house like it was a crime scene. Neighbors' doors cracked open. Curtains shifted. I could already feel the judgment. As she talked, she kept smirking at me, mouthing, "You'll regret this." I stood there thinking how insane it was that refusing to unlock my own garage had escalated this far. I had no idea that the officer she'd just called was about to walk into a situation that would completely flip the power dynamic she was counting on. And while she waited for the police, she made sure to remind me every 30 seconds that she was doing this for the community, that people like me were the reason neighborhoods declined. I stayed quiet, but inside I was already bracing for things to get much worse. The police cruiser pulled up slower than I expected, like even it wasn't convinced this was worth the trip. The HOA woman straightened instantly, smoothing her blazer and putting on a face of righteous concern. She marched toward the car before the officer even had Tomito open the door, launching into herstory the second his boots hit the pavement. She told him I was refusing a lawful HOA inspection, that I was hostile, and that she feared I was running something illegal out of my garage. She kept glancing back at me like she expected me to explode at any second. I didn't. I stood there, hands visible, calm, because I knew something she didn't. She was building a case entirely out of arrogance. The officer walked over to me next, asked for my side. I explained everything slowly. Now notice, no appointment, no consent, private garage. I even offered to pull up the HOA bylaws on my phone. That's when the officer's expression shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. A pause too long. A look back at her, then at the garage. She noticed it, too. Before he could say anything else, she jumped back and louder now. She insisted HO authority overrode my personal feelings. She said she'd personally fine me if I didn't comply. She even threatened to. recommend foreclosure proceedings, which made absolutely no sense. The officer raised a hand, told her to stop talking for a moment. That's when she made her next mistake. She demanded the officer order me to unlock the garage. Not ask, order. She said if he didn't, she'd file a complaint against him, too. I watched his jaw tighten. He asked her if she had a warrant court order or written authorization signed by the homeowner. She said she didn't need one because she was HOA bored. The silence that followed felt heavy. Neighbors were fully out now. Pretended check mail, walking dogs that didn't need walking. The officer told her very clearly that an HOA has no police power, no automatic right of entry, no authority to compel access without proper notice or legal backing. Her face went red, then pale, then red again. Instead of backing down, she doubled down. She accused the officer of being biased. She claimed to must know him personally. She said the whole thing felt suspiciously friendly. That's when he finally said it. He told her he actually didn't know me, not socially, professionally. He explained that he rented the apartment above Mygrage, that he paid rent on time every month, that he'd seen the inside of the garage many times, and that there was absolutely nothing illegal about it. You could practically hear her ego crack. She stammered, tried to recover, insisted renting space was itself a violation. I calmly corrected her. The rental was permitted, documented, approved years ago. She had never bothered to check the records. The officer confirmed it, too, explaining gone through the HOA paperwork himself before signing the lease. Now, she was the one being questioned. The officer asked why she escalated straight to the police instead of issuing a notice. Asked why she was attempting to access private property without consent. Asked why she was harassing a homeowner in a weekend without cause. Each question hit harder than the last. Her voice dropped, the confidence drained out of her posture. But the damage was done. The neighbors were watching her unravel in real time. She wasn't an authority figure anymore. She was just a woman who had pushed too far, too fast, and ended up exposed. And as the officer finished his notes, I realized this wasn't just about my garage anymore. This was about something she'd been doing to a lot of people. And today, she'd finally picked the wrong house. She tried to leave after that, just walk away like nothing had happened. She mumbled something about following up internally and took a step toward her car, but the officer stopped her calmly, politely, with the same tone she tried to use to dominate me all morning. He told her he still needed her full name and HOA position for his report. That's when the real story started leaking out. Her hand was shaking as she handed over her ID. She laughed nervously and said this had all been misunderstood, that she was just being proactive, that people appreciated her dedication. The officer nodded, wrote everything down, and then asked a question that caught her completely off guard. He asked how many tips she'd received recently. She froze. Turns out she'd been going door-to-door for weeks, demanding access to garages, sheds, even backyards, always claiming anonymous tips, always insisting on immediate compliance, always escalating when people pushed back. A couple of homeowners had already complained quietly about harassment, threats, intimidation. No one wanted Tobe the one to challenge her publicly. But there was something she hadn't counted on. The officer explained gently but firmly that he hadn't just rented from me. He was also assigned to this area. He'd seen a spike in nuisance calls tied directly to HOA disputes. Same name kept coming up. Same tactics, same pattern. What she thought was authority was starting to look a lot like abuse. Her face collapsed when she realized this wasn't a win anymore. This wasn't leverage. This was a paper trail. Then came the twist I never expected. She wasn't even authorized to do inspections. The officer asked if she was the current compliance officer. She hesitated, then admitted she wasn't. She'd lost that role months earlier after a board vote. She was still helping out. She said, still keeping standards high. In reality, she'd been freelancing power, flashing an old badge and hoping no one would call her bluff, and I had. The officer told her to levy me property immediately and warned her not to return without formal notice. He also told her the HOA board would bear receiving a full report, including her threats, misuse of police resources, and unauthorized inspections. That word unauthorized hit her harder than anything else. She looked at me then, really looked at me. No anger, no arrogance, just panic. She asked quietly if we could resolve this neighbor-to-neighbor. I told her no, not angrily, just honestly. She'd crossed that line herself. When she drove away, the street felt different, lighter. Neighbors started talking. One woman thanked me for standing my ground. Another admitted she'd been fined after letting that same woman into her garage. Stories started spilling out like they'd been waiting for permission. A week later, I got an email from the HOA. She had been removed from the board entirely. Her previous fines were under review. A new policy was issued about inspections, notice requirements, and homeowner rights. Quietly but decisively, the power shifted. The officer still rents from. We joke about it now, but every time I walk past my closed garage door, I think about how close I came to caving just to avoid drama, and how saying one simple word, no, ended up protecting a whole neighborhood. Because sometimes the biggest mistake a bully can make is excusing someone who knows their rights and isn't afraid to stand still when the noise gets loud. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story where justice gets even more satisfying.